Welcome to Golf Industry Guru and the Gig Podcast, where we interview the best and brightest golf and hospitality leaders on the planet. On today's episode, you will learn some proven real-world solutions that'll help you and your team solve some of your biggest golf business challenges. So stick around for some tips, tools, and training to get you, your people, and your business powered on. Here's your host, James Cronk.
Well, hello there, ladies and gentlemen of Golf Industry Guru, and welcome to another Gig Podcast. I'm your host, James Cronk, and this is part two of our conversation with Mike Orloff from Golf Industry Central. I invite you to listen to part one, where we had a great, first of all, we heard all about Mike and about his background and where things are going with his experience as an operator with American Golf and Club Corps and other organizations, and his work down under in Australia and New Zealand, Australasia, with regards to his business down there. And we had a great conversation about pace of play. And Mike, it's great to have you back again as a guest with our part two of our podcast with you, and maybe just remind listeners a little bit about how they can get in touch with you, and what are some of the services that you currently provide in your market, and what you do with Golf Industry Central.
Yeah, no, great, James. Yeah, my main platform, what started out 13 years ago, was Golf Industry Central, and it was just a platform for, I guess, me to make a name, to get known in the industry. So I needed some way to market myself. And over those 13 years, it's moved more toward a news and information resource. So Golf Industry Central, it's Australasian news, but we pinch stuff from overseas to share with the industry here to hopefully just stimulate ideas. My vision of one day someone comes up and says, "Hey, Mike, I saw this article that I wrote or I shared on one of our platforms, and made a difference. It improved my facility or did help me get a job." Like that to me would be the ultimate compliment. So that's what drives me. But from a commercial standpoint, it's turned into I've got advertising on it with local local companies or whatnot, with job ads. I do some recruitment. A lot of my work lately has been in the marketing space. And actually, what I say is I turn vision into action. So vision without action is a daydream, but I'm there to facilitate with a client or a club and what their vision is. The first thing I ask them is, can I see your strategic plan, or what's the vision for the club or facility? And then it's up to me with my operational hat on is actually convert that vision into reality. And that's where a lot of clubs get challenged because they don't have the resources structure to make that type of change. But yeah, just through Mike at golfindustrycentral.com.au. I'm on LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, personal, business, everything I do. So
all the accounts.
Thank God for automation. There's no way to personally do it, but automation has made that a lot easier. But just a lot of knowledge. If anybody's interested in what's happening down, I love the way you say down under, James. But it's just been a fun journey. I've learned meeting a lot of, been able to meet a lot of people, play at some really nice golf courses, people that I would never. I'm just like, wow, they actually know who I am, which is surprising. So it's been really cool that way. And and having some fun along the way. And I think in the other episode, I moved here 20 years ago. I got married 16 years now this year. 2 kids, mortgage, and all that type of stuff. But the Gold Coast, Australia, is my home, and really. Very cruisy area, nice weather. It doesn't get too hot, doesn't get too cold. 2 airports away within half hour, 45 minutes from here. Beach is 10 minutes away. So, I'm living in the burbs with a dog. Got a new cavoodle.
You got it. You're living the dream. You're living the dream. I love it. And Mike, you and I have had a chance to have a beer or two in various different parts of the world. And we've always, I've always loved what you talk about, and I've seen many of your presentations. We saw a presentation last time you and I were together about the customer journey, and I wanted to talk a little bit about the customer experience, because I know in your background in working for some of the most at the time, kind of global management firms,
Yep.
American Golf and Club Corp, places like that, I can only imagine the systems and the processes and the strategies and the conversations and the training tools and things like that you had access to and were involved in probably creating. And I wanted to just talk a little bit about kind of the customer experience. And I'm going to start, if you don't mind, by asking you a question from our first podcast that was in my head that I never got to, because, we were just talking about pace of play, and we were talking about the time currency, the money currency, and the emotional currency of the guest experience when they're playing golf, and how it can get ruined sometimes when the time currency gets all screwed up. I had this conversation with some staff the other day when we were talking about single golfers, letting singles go out on the golf course with some members, and a couple of members wanted to go out by themselves as singles because they wanted to play by themselves. And I had to spend 15 minutes explaining to the young guy in the golf shop, while that's taking care of the member that wants to go out by himself, it's completely creating pressure on everyone around that individual that's going to feel pressure for 4 hours that there's a single behind them, or the single's going to want to play through them, and then that's going to be a dog's breakfast. And then the single's going to say, I'm not going to play through anybody, and then he's going to use the golf course to practice and hit 4 or 5 shots. And if that guy's behind me, my entire day is ruined already, right? Just from the golf course letting a single go off the tee sheet. So I wanted to, and so then we were talking about kind of starters and marshals, and I wanted to ask your opinion about in your pace of play and the stuff you've learned with, you mentioned Bill Yates and others, is the best place for the marshal ambassador, I like to call them ambassadors, driving around the golf course, or stationary? Like, how do you best manage the course marshal, the course ambassador? I'm assuming you don't have GPS. You don't have tag marshal. You don't have a system that's going to tell you where everything is. What's in your learning? What's the best thing for the customer experience, I guess? Yep.
No, that's a good solid question. As we spoke about in the other one, just I've started to learn the old school way, which is a lot of the new managers may learn it from using technology, but the old school way is, well, one, it depends on the course layout. So think of the nines as 2 wheels. So we're watching the first wheel and the second wheel. So the first wheel needs, I know a lot of places used to bring their marshals in at 8:00 and your first tee time's at 6 or 5:30. Yeah, you probably already have the problem before the marshals or ambassadors there even to fix it. So have a think about where your ambassador comes in. If you have them come in too late. So the whole key is to get that first wheel moving at a with the staggers of 8 minutes or 9 minutes or 7 minutes or whatever it is, and get that wheel turning, and then that wheel hopefully will keep turning the same way on the other side. But we do have trouble holes, so the ambassador doesn't need to don't go forward, don't go 1, 2, 3, go backwards, but you don't have to do the whole golf course. So one, you might have a vantage point on some courses. You have hole 6 will oversee 7 or 8 different holes possibly, or find your little smaller circles within that big wheel and where the trouble spot is. So if it's 3, 4, and 5 is where the backup is normally, focus on 3, 4, and 5 and focus on where the backups are going to be. So part of that pace of play was to measure and understand where some of the trouble spots are. So as an ambassador, you would go after the trouble spots and make sure those are unclogged. So it's a pipe. You just need to unclog it and then let it go through, and then it usually flows pretty well. Unless you've got players that are really, just not very good, or they're messing around. But on the most part,
then you just kick them off and give them the money back.
We're getting a fight with them. I had some guy come after me once because he was intoxicated and he wanted to take my head off for telling him to hurry up. And there's that too, is having the right type of person as your ambassador. I mean, we tend to get the cheapest labor and the least experienced maturity wise, and we've got 40, 50, 60-year-olds out there, and you're trying to have an 18 or 19-year-old marshal them or police them. So there's a lot of education in that. That's a space that I'm getting more into, as well as, that educational piece around how to manage, that interaction, almost a training course on, how to go about it. Are you policing for the negative, or do you go there and thank people? Is it a customer service element that you're offering? So there's a couple dynamics, and a lot of the LA ones were more slap on the hand. They were going after the perpetrator. We're going to bash you down, for being behind, versus reinforcing. Remember
that people are paying for an experience. So
exactly.
let's transition to that, Mike. Let's talk. Let's move away from pace of play and talk about the overall customer experience, that kind of customer journey.
Yep.
And I know you've done a lot of work in this area, and a lot of I know you present and you've got some articles and presentations on it. First of all, just kind of share with me a little bit about, if you don't mind, and our listeners, about why you think this is such an important topic.
Yeah, I mean, it's been one of these. The early part of my career, I didn't really understand it. Like I just saw nuts and bolts, and I didn't see the big picture of things. And as I've gotten more life experiences, and now as a consumer that actually has a little bit of money, how I started to really think about how I make decisions of where I'm going to go and where I want to spend my money. This whole value equation, value equals the experience minus the cost. So what brought it all together was I had Greg Patterson and Norm Spitzig out to the Australia on two different road shows. For first one was, I think, 8 or 9 days, and the other one was about 10 or 11 days. So I had both of them for that long, basically in a car, dinner. Yeah, it's insane. There's stories on that one. What an experience
that must have been.
Greg, I won't tell all this what happened really. No, just joking. But the first time I had Greg, because I'd seen him present, and I'll focus on Greg's side of things with his very philosophical side of how he looks at things. And I know Greg's done some on here already with Gig. It took me a couple times. I'm there and I'm watching. I'm in the back of the room, making sure things are running as well as I can, and just trying to keep things on time and whatever. And just hearing the same messaging over and over again over several days. We did five cities in, I think it was 9 days. So we did 5 within Australia and New Zealand, then played golf, a round of golf. So it was packed. I called it it was like a rock and roll tour was what I positioned with them.
Yes.
And I'm the road manager, and it's like, come on guys, we got to go next place. We did one in Melbourne, flew into Sydney that night, and did another show that night in Sydney. It was just intense. But just soaking in the philosophical part of what Greg talks about. And it's not for everybody, and it can't fit in. There's personalities and the types of culture and everything. So that resonated with me. And then I had him a couple of years later, did it again, not as much travel, but once again, and listening to then it just all of a sudden the bell went off, the light bulb went off, and I started thinking about my own experiences when I go out, or my own experiences at a golf course, and all these 30 years of things all started resonating. And I just went, wow, like that real. I love it what he talks about, and then I've got my spin on how I do it, and I've turned it into sort of an operational training, I guess you would say, that I'm still developing how to do it online. With COVID last year, trialing a lot of online stuff, as we all did, just to keep things going. We don't have the travel component, so hopefully have an online course at some point later this year to be able to do online training. So you could watch it, or I do training like this and work with them, to get a good understanding. So it's just that passion finally came in, and I just go, wow, this is something I really enjoy. I feel like I have enough experience to bring experiences to the table of, okay, this one time this happened, went on a flight, and they get people to talk about that emotional currency is the big one, because the dollar and the time isn't as much as it is that emotion. How did you feel? Did you enjoy that flight? And I use different examples of traveling with kids, going overseas, big US trip, 14-hour flight with 2 kids. What happens at the airport, and how do they look after you? How did the car hire place? And I got some really great stories to share when it made me feel good, because they saw that who I was and looked after and said, look, you got kids in there, they're still asleep. I'll drive you and drop you off at the airport at LA, and I've got time, I'll do it. And that always stuck with me. I don't even know the guy's name, and it wasn't in his standard operating procedure. He just knew, because he probably was a parent. And I went, wow. Right. And then get into Sydney the next day, and we're the last ones to get our pram, our stroller. And I'm going, we just came off this 14-hour flight. I've got two just rambunctious kids, and we're the last ones to get our stroller. You just go, oh, okay, we've got all these different things. So I've just, I guess, feeding off of a lot of my personal experience. And I'm sure you have them. Like, what's the best experience you've had? What's the best restaurant you've ever been to, James? Ask you right now. What's the one that comes to mind? You go, oh, yeah, great.
Oh, my goodness. Well,
and why?
And why? Well, there's a restaurant in Vancouver called Joe Forte's, which is like a seafood kind of, got a great patio. It's got a great vibe. It's always got great music. But the reason is it's like a ridiculously high-end McDonald's in that it's always, the consistency is always there.
Yep.
Right. So the food and the service and the experience is incredibly complicated. Right. It's not a, when I say McDonald's or a Burger King, it's like, it's really, really complicated experience, but it's delivered consistently at an incredibly high level.
Yep.
Right. And it's complicated stuff. And the fact that it's always so wonderful. It's always so consistent. It's always so, above and beyond.
Yep.
It's also what makes it special.
Yep.
And so when we talk about, and you and I talk about this lots of times about you can be a McDonald's. Your golf course can be a McDonald's, and your golf course can be a Joe Forte's, and your golf course can be whatever restaurant you think is whatever you want to be in your. I always actually sometimes say to golf course clients, it's like, if you were a restaurant in your city, which one would you be?
Yep.
And then which one would you like to be? And hopefully they're the same thing.
Yeah.
But if they're not, let's identify, because sometimes, we forget that we are a product. We're a product, just like other products, and just like other products have competitors.
Yep.
What differentiates this product from another product? What's the differentiating factor?
Yeah, no, exactly. And to me, the experience, and you could put in, the experience being quote unquote, it could be the XYZ golf course experience or the restaurant experience. And it's all about that experience. Do you think that one is by design or by just happened? And that's what, you know what I mean? So as much as we as a consumer think like, wow, it's amazing, behind the scenes, it would be so structured. It would have the 100%. Operating procedures. It would have the right people. There would be right accountabilities and measurement. That food quality, like we spoke about in Pace of Play as well. It's like the food in the morning, the food in the afternoon. You on a Monday, Friday, Saturday, you still get the same thing because it's about expectation too. So we have a lot of people that first time going somewhere, their expectation is going to be set by what they've heard from other people, by testimonial, but their expectation is at whatever level. As long as you can exceed that expectation by the whole raving fans philosophy, 1%, you've won them. Now, the challenge is when they come back again, they have a slightly different expectation because now their expectation is based off the last time they were there. Mm-hmm. And Joe or, Larry or whoever the person that served them may not be the same person. So you've also, not just the product of that burger or that meal you got needs to be consistent, is the staff have to be consistent. And just that experience, how they were checked in, where you parked your car, how long it took to get your meal out. All this, so, like you said, so complex, isn't it? And McDonald's has it down to a science. It is so perfectly regulated and to a science of getting things out. Now, for us, it's about our expectation. We go to McDonald's, we know what to expect, and we always get at least that every time we go. And the differential could be that person.
And it can be, but what I try to explain to people, especially people that are not in our industry, hypothetically, let's just say that McDonald's, if you go to McDonald's, you're going to have, I don't know, let's say 5 touch points, 10 touch points. Yep. It's going to be clean. There's going to be some music on, maybe. You're going to see the screen. You're going to order the same food you could expect to get anywhere. It's going to be served by the same 17-year-old from high school, and then you're going to leave. Well, when you come to a golf course, like the number of touch points, the number of opportunities to win them over and to lose them. We used to have my old boss used to say, My old boss used to say, you had me, you lost me. Like, It's like, just have way more had me's than you lose you's, right? Because the greens, the experience with the ambassador, the food at the turn, the check-in in the golf shop, when they phone to make their tea time. I mean, all those things. So Mike, when you're getting into that kind of part of that mapping or that journey, what are some of those points that you focus on that you think that a club needs to kind of key into?
Yep. Now, I know you could break it into the whole customer journey mapping process. Because it's typically something new to the clients that I work with. It's sort of a newer concept. I go very, very basic. I go, okay, what's the first touch point? Okay. They come to your website, social media, email, whatever it is, that's their first impression of you. Okay. Tick. Did it resonate? Is it the right message? Whatever. So that's one part of that experience. Two would be, if they go to book online or they call up and want to come in for golf or a reservation for the restaurant. What does that look like? So you just think about how we as people, consumers, make decisions, and just start mapping that out. And you could do it very basic to start with, which I suggest just as a starting point, and then you can start digging deeper and get into the really finer things of the overall experience they have. Curb appeal. So when they drive up or people drive by the facility, what's that impression? Is it weedy? Is the sign lights not flickering? Is it no paint? Is it chipped? Is it, us as managers and longtime staff, sometimes the blinders come on. It's just human nature. The blinders come on. So go away, either go somewhere else and go look at someone else's property, or get a colleague from another property to come visit. We used to do that with the American Golf Days. We had 13 properties in our region, and every month we went to a different property for a meeting. You had 12 other managers and your regional picking everything out of it. It was like, you better be good, because you got 12 other really smart people too, really coming at you and giving you different perspectives. So that curb appeal. Then you think about the check-in process, or it could be the car, how you park the car, and just start mapping that out to start with. And you go, okay, how do we, the check-in process in the pro shop, or check into the restaurant, coming into the clubhouse, do they know where to go? Then going out on the golf course, is there a starter, or you just send them out and hope they come back in 4 hours? Or do you have another touch point on the course? And then the pace of play, of course, and course conditioning is a big element of golf, the golf world, as we know. Then when they finish, where do they go? How do we get them into the restaurant? And then when they leave, now the biggest one I see is that after they leave, if they haven't complained or whatever, we just let them leave a lot of times. And we forget about the really important one, is that measurement at the end, is sending them a thank you. Could you please send us a net promoter score on TripAdvisor or Facebook or Google or whatever it is, and make sure that we do the full journey. Because, you mentioned it. So it is more complex than McDonald's, but I guess my point on McDonald's is it's very technical, and we know what to expect for a $6.95 burger. And we're happy to go do it. We know what it's going to do. It's going to fill a void, or what, as long as it tastes good and it's hot and not inferior. But, taking that same philosophy, that's by design. So how do we do this by design for our golf clubs? And same thing. Do you have a standard operating procedure to look at those types of things? Do you have a way of gauging feedback from your members and guests? Are you doing regular surveys? Are you doing pulse surveys? Are you doing things out to guests, and look at your marketing and review everything? So it starts getting you can really start digging deep in every area. But my suggestion is just sort of look at those maybe 4 or 5 stages, macro, and then start building and work with your team and go, hey, that's what I do. Okay, let's talk about the philosophical part of the experience, the emotional part of the experience. The time, the currency, the value equals the cost, the expense. Value equals the experience minus the cost. So did I get more out of it than what I paid, which is what you mentioned earlier, that emotional bank account. We've got a lot of yes, and then that drinks cart person never came back, and you had the whole back 9 and you were thirsty and you never saw that person. That was the one thing out of the chain that just wrecked the whole experience. Now, are they
what they'll remember?
Yeah. Are they deal breakers? Or sometimes, if that person would have said, hey, I'm out of sandwiches, I'll be right back, and then never came back, yeah, you're going to be pissed off. But if they said, oh, I'm out, shit happens. So, okay, let's, how we react to that is what makes us good experience or good service, is how we react to that. We're never going to be perfect, but how we react and solve a problem or the complaint resolution is what makes us great. Is how do we go up and above it?
What I think is critical in what you're talking about, I mean, it's like broken records. It's like how many times we had these conversations, but I think people don't talk about it enough. Number one, I really think they don't. I really think that, and I'm not trying to be critical. I'm saying that it's so much easier to talk about, we got to put sand in the bunkers, or, we got to figure out how to replace our irrigation system than to talk about how is our 17-year-old that started yesterday answering the phone when the person on the other end of that phone has $200, $300, $400, $500, $600, $700 in their hand. Like literally, the 17-year-old answering the phone is the connection, or the going to the website is the connection between that person giving us hundreds of dollars, or not, or going somewhere else. And then the second thing I would say that I if I thought about what you just said a minute ago, was that none of the things you talked about cost money. No. Right. So deciding what music's playing, deciding if there's weeds in the front, deciding if you're going to say, is that are you ready to order? Or if you're going to say, just so you know, our pizza's fantastic. Have you ever had it before? Yep. Those are two different ways to come to the table. Neither one of those, it doesn't cost more money to say the second one, to say, we're famous for our pizza. It doesn't cost more for that. It's the care and attention to that customer experience. But I think what you're saying is that we got to map it out so that we know what all these points are, so that we can break it down so that it doesn't happen just by happenstance. Yeah. And exactly. A lot of places will just, okay, you're on the first tee, we'll call you out. Mr. Kronk, you're up next. Kronk and guest, or Kronk and each person's name. I mean, there's a little thing like that. You can call everybody's name out, or Kronk and guest. There's those little differences, as we know. Great. We'll see you in 4.5 hours. Driving around on big equipment and dangers and hitting golf balls, and we just go, hey, go for it. We'll see you in 4 hours. It was like, no, it should all be by design, but we don't want the consumer to realize that. And that's what you mentioned about your restaurant. But behind the scenes, I'm sure it's, same with Disneyland. It's behind the scenes is so different than what's in front of the house. And I've always taken that one as like my admin or office, back area is our sanctuary. Staff can come in there and relax, and members, the ones, should not see us and be able to come back there and not hear what's going on there. Once you walk outside, you're on show. So as we know, we walk out on the floor and we're there and we're presenting that's our product. So the experience is the product. Yes, 80% of that experience is probably based around golf. And when we talk about golf course, when we say, oh, what's a good golf? It's always about the golf course, not the experience at that golf course. Oh, Pebble Beach is great. It's a great golf course, but everything else could be shit. But the Pebble Beach is really good, and it's not. But that they could charge what they do. So it's a good golf course, not necessarily a good golf club. And we want that clubbiness side of things. The other thing is, once you start mapping this out, is going into the ing moments. So when you're delivering the food, or you're teeing off, or you're driving in, answering the phone, all those little touch points, you got an opportunity to give them a little bit of a little wow, a little snap of, you don't have to do it the whole way. We just want just that plus 1% when you answer the phone. That little extra makes it, oh, okay, well, that was it. But you need to do it. If you can make those small incremental improvements or wows throughout your whole journey at your facility, you're going to get wow, how great it was. Because we fill in the gaps. We go, yeah, that was great. And then an hour later, that was great. And that was great. I got 3 really nice, great moments. I emotionally feel good that, what I paid is, was great value. And I tell my friends, and that's the whole net promoter of, approach is, you want people having a 9 or 10. 7 and 8 it's great. You've met expectation. Great. They're not telling anybody.
They might come back, but they're not telling me. Get them to 9 and 10. They're going to go, oh my God, like, look at this burger. Look at this meal. Like, wow, and they're going to share it on social media. And if you ask, whenever I get to Vancouver again, I want to go where you went because you know what? James said it's good and I'm going to go there because of you. And how do that's part of our marketing, but we'll put money into advertising and we'll put money into newspaper or everything else, but we miss the basics. And that's really around the staff we hire, how they're trained, how they're held to accountability, working on delivering those ing moments regularly, and it doesn't have the same thing. It doesn't have to be a cost thing. It's a training and, and setting the culture. It all starts with culture, of a facility, and it's driven from the top down. And a lot of our boards over here, a lot of our courses are mostly traditional committee, not for profit, and culture starts with them. The clubs that are doing really well, that you look and they've got long-term plans and they've got around people culture and just what the facility is about, it shows when you go there. And the ones that are struggling, it's 2-year plans, there's infighting with the board and so it all starts at the top. It runs from the head down type of mindset and but having some practical management things that start with a couple things and then try it and see what kind of feedback you get.
Do you have some examples of some things that you've either implemented or you've seen, that kind of that extra 1% you mentioned, that kind of the wow factors? What if you're going to we always talk about the fact that there's nothing original. We all steal everybody's ideas, everybody's stuff. Do you have a few examples you could share with our audience that they might want to consider looking at doing? Yeah.
I mean, one, I would have a good look at what you're not doing at the moment. I mean, you go to some of these and this is where I share outside of golf, because not a lot of, I don't get out to enough golf courses, but I haven't seen enough at golf courses because they're usually very, more traditional and reserve and just by nature, where if you go to Greg Patterson's place, it's a whole different thing because that's what they wanted. But, one example, once again, using an example in the U.S. at a big, it's a Mexican food chain in California called Gonzalez. I'm going to give them some kudos. Gonzalez Market, part of a chain, and we always went when my daughter's birthday was on, 2nd of July, to go visit the family and spend some time. They can have a birthday with her, and we went in there and we need to get a birthday cake. So we ordered it and we come out and they stopped like 10 staff in the bakery and they all came out and sang happy birthday to her.
Oh, awesome.
30 seconds. Like they didn't know who we were. We didn't know who they were. We were not expecting it. And like 10 Hispanic, they came out and started singing happy birthday. And I know we see that at restaurants. So it's the same thing. Let's get the basics right. Like how we answer the phone. Like I have an article I wrote years ago, just answer the effing phone. Because staff, we were very trained in it, 3 times and how you answer. Very, very rigid. But who do you answer the phone, or do you, if there's somebody in front of you, who do you help the person in front of you, or do you answer the phone? And it's very, very contentious. I always say answer the phone because they can't see that there's a person in front of you, where the person in front of you can see that you're on the phone. And just simple things like that. But the little birthday ones, celebrating milestones with a lot of our, the clubs that you guys are working with are probably doing this already. So, I know it's 101. It's going into playing in Japan and going on air flights. I know with Qantas, and you get on, they give you the nice, even in economy, nice cool towels or warm towels. And how great does that feel? Just that little simple thing. It's not a high cost. Or halfway through, for us, we've got Cadbury chocolate is our this big the big thing. I'm not sure if that's Canadian, if it's a Commonwealth thing or if it's whatever.
No, Cadbury chocolate is 100% North American, worldwide. Yeah.
So, anyways, so you're on the plane. It's 14-hour flight coming over or back. It's late. It's 2:00 in the morning. You're just wiped out and you're adjusting, and then they bring out the hot chocolate, and you can smell it in the plane, and you just go like how simple is that? But it's so memorable. So take that same philosophy. I would do it with my when I was working with Club Corp, we do it on our ladies, women's event, monthly event, and I would drive out as a manager and take a plate of cheese and strawberries, and I would just make a circle around the golf course and go, "Hi, ladies, how's it going?" And they're like, "Oh, did we do something wrong?" I'm like, "No, I'm just here to say hello." They're in that. Oh, what did I do wrong? Because they're used to getting slapped on the wrist for something, not just the women, but any player. Oh, that management's coming out. We probably did something wrong. It's like, well, no, it's a positive. We're here as a customer service, but women, ladies in our event, here you go. Here's some, and they're just blown away. Like, or we put coffee and teas and fruit on the first tee. So Saturday morning, Sunday morning, help yourself. No charge. Yeah, whoever wanted it, and that for our market here, that was like futuristic, which is really like the coffee costs you barely anything, and but it made that impact. So those are those totally. So what are those things? So if you map it out to start with, those basic things, have a review with your team, take 5 or 6 of you out and just walk around and talk about that, or take your 5 or 6 of your decision makers and go to what's the best department store in town. Just they do it well. Go over there and steal all their ideas and go, wow, look at that signage.
See what happens.
They did that. But then you'll also when you start looking through those lenses, you'll start seeing what they're not doing as well. Like I get frustrated now. My wife has to, because I'm in that space. I hate waiting in the queue. If our bar is here, you go get a drink. It's not like you have 5 different queues. Or over there in North America, you sort of have one queue, and then if there's 5 servers, the next person goes to that one. It just is free for all, and just drives me bonkers. Like, well, I've been waiting here patiently, and then who's next? But the big thing is the bartender isn't aware that I was the next person. So there's an awareness with good service and experience is about customer is the awareness factor. So I see Mr. Kronk, I see James walking in, and I'm dealing with someone. I look and it registers James just walked in. Great. So I know he's the next person. I need to acknowledge that you're there. James, I'll be 100%. With you. Just awareness and acknowledge. So once again, this just may be 101 to the listeners here, but for down here, it's just, we're so far behind on that aspect of things. It's just little things like that. Doesn't cost a lot, but just good training. And, I guess a final note would just be about the incremental improvements. Don't try to go from 5 to 20 in one day, because it won't last.
It won't happen.
Just pick one thing and do it regularly. Each day pick something new. How can we do it better? And have this as part of your staff, either if it's the daily startup or at the end of a shift, or if it's a little 5-minute little pull everybody aside before service starts or before it gets busy. Okay, today we're just going to talk about one thing. Let's talk about the first tee experience, or let's talk about when people come in and it gets busy, and let's learn from our mistakes and let's just improve on it, and just do that. We're just going to get better. And then when shit happens bad, how do we recover? Have humility and say, it was our fault. Sorry. Got a longer wait than usual. And let's just get better on it. But if you see repeat issues, same thing, delay. Okay. There's something in the processes that's wrong. It's either the kitchen can't handle it, the orders didn't go through right, or too many people came all at one time. Great. Then how do we manage those people's expectations while they're there? And that's getting to the granular view of things.
The example I'd give, it's just while we're talking about it, like, so I was very fortunate many years ago. Both Scott and I actually managed a facility that for whatever, well, first of all, for whatever reason, I can tell you why, it's because of the mentor that we worked under, that we learned from, Jim McLaughlin, who now is with Troon Golf. And we learned this above and beyond philosophy, where it let us get to do spectacular things, but never at the expense of the basic things. It's like McDonald's doesn't bring in the McFlurry if they can't deliver a cheeseburger properly, you can't and so you've got to make sure the basics are there before you start bringing in the special occasion stuff. And it just reminded me of one of my favorite things that we did. You're talking about the ladies' day and driving around with the wine and cheese. At one year at Easter, this is probably actually sacrilegious, but in Easter, it was Easter. And so we had this part 3 that was, after you teed off, you had to get in your carts. And then when you got in your carts to get up to the green, it was invisible for a while. Like, you couldn't see the green.
Oh, okay.
And so we had a young staff member dressed in an Easter bunny suit. And then after everyone teed off, he would run out to the green and put some chocolate eggs in the bottom of the cup of the flag.
Yep.
So that and people would, they would get glimpses of like this big Easter bunny, and then they'd find their little chocolate eggs right in the bottom of the cup. And as you can imagine, right? Yeah. I mean, as you can, this is back in the day when there was no such thing as Net Promoter Score or social media.
Yeah, exactly.
But the reality is that we, once again, what was the cost of that? The cost was $30 in chocolate Easter eggs, and at the time, about $7 an hour for the employee to do on a Sunday for those people that were playing golf on Easter. But getting back to what we just said a minute ago, you can do all that all you want, but if the phone's still ringing, if no one's picking up the phone,
and the greens are crap, and
the greens are crap, and they're playing a 6-hour round of golf, you can dress up in Easter in bunny suits all you want, but it's not gonna help you.
Yeah, well, no, that's exactly right. Yeah, but I was thinking of that one. You maybe reminded me was because of the course I ran was a Nicholas design course, a signature facility. So we had the Lady Bear was the event. So you had about a kilometer entry road coming in, winding a little bit, and the same thing when they first drove in and came through the first roundabout. We had someone dressed in a bear, like a bear outfit, waving.
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah.
The big thing with the value is that you can't get that anywhere else. That's where the return comes in. And we always go, we can't do it. It was like, well, if you're doing things that no one else is doing and they can't get it anywhere else, like you can charge more as long as, in equity on it or what you're providing, but they're not getting it somewhere else. And then when they go back to their other place, they go,
where's the bear?
They look substandard, and that's why with that coffee and oranges, there's nothing. You get a couple of big boxes every week, and you just stick them out there, and whoever wants them. But you had other members would come up with their guests and go, "Hey, would you like a cup of coffee?" Well, yeah, we get it for free. And then they're like, "Really?" Like we go back to our place and the other club, and they don't get it. So it's like,
And you just got to build it into the model. I would say so take your green fee up 20 cents to pay for the coffee or whatever it might be. I mean, we have this belief. That's a terrible thing it's a terrible thing to generalize like that. So I apologize. I take that back. There are times in our industry when I think we have this belief that we are selling a quantifiable product, like a cart of milk. It's like we are selling an experience, like when you talk about Pebble Beach. So to a non-golfer, paying $600 to play Pebble Beach is ridiculous. There's no value in that whatsoever. In fact, they wouldn't pay $60 to play Pebble Beach.
Yep.
But to a golfer, it's just like, okay, it's on my bucket list once in a lifetime. Sure, I'll do it. Right. So what's, when we talk about the fact that we're worth $60 green fee, or we're worth a $20 green fee, or a 20-pound green fee, or a whatever currency you're working in, I mean, that's obviously up to the consumer. Yep. And our job is to create an experience with with the emotional currency that gets more real currency out of their pocket. Don't you think?
No, that's exactly right. And it's hard because we've and I'm not sure. I'm guessing worldwide. We've got that resurgence of golf. So we're the last 6, 7, 8 years over here. We've been very much a buyer's market. So we memberships dropping off. There's more opportunity to play other places. It's price driven on price versus over value. And we're finally this year, some of the conversations I've got with clients is around moving the other way and going back to having a joining fee, or let's push the rates up because we're so busy right now. Like we can, and it's a whole RevPAR course utilization type of thing. And you go, well, you can't go up. Well, you need to go up a couple of dollars. Push it as far as you feel you can go until that, and we need to, because we've been in a downward spiral. Over here, we've got a lot more online competition for selling discounted rates or whatever. And it's like, well, let's get the basics right and let's get our core of our business right. And then we're in a seller's market now. If you want to play our course, like Nicholas' course, we would, we were able to charge $140 because we had a great quality facility, but we also had an even better experience. And we had, a bag drop person, or the one I ran in the US where I really learned a lot about that high end service was, Coyote Hills. And it was, if you never wanted anybody showing up to ever carry the clubs. So someone pulls into the parking lot or car park and you just see someone start running. It's one of our staff members. It's like they knew someone got Mr. Jones is parked at the far side of the range, or far side of the car park. Unfortunately, it's like, go. He's not carrying his club. But people were like, you try to do it over here, and they're like, hey, you're not touching my club. What are you trying to steal them off me? But that's like,
that's because they know you'll feel all the beer that's in the bottom of their bag.
That's right. But that's part of the culture. I mean, it gets back to this whole thing. I mean, how do you roll it out? Well, it's a cultural decision. So as a manager, you need to make sure your board is supportive of it, because it might cost you a little bit more. And this is where we're busier now. We should be having more money. Let's put it back into energizing our products and offering. And if that's the most money gets put back into the golf course, because that's all they ever see. And then we've got deteriorating assets in clubhouse and car park and buggies and everything else, because, well, as long as the golf course is really good, let's spend it all on that. Let's get all new sand. It's like, okay, there's $50,000 in sand. Okay, well, next year we got to spend another $50,000. Or let's look at.
But we can't spend $100 on training.
Yeah. Spend $100 on training, or you could do it yourself. Come on to gig and get some good training stuff. That's just as part of your orientation when you bring a new staff member on. You have to watch this. And that's what it's all about. But don't do it once. And then in 2 weeks' time, you do it again, and then you talk to them. What did you learn? What do you think? And holding them accountable. I mean, Greg Patterson he's always talked about. He has a 5-day window. He goes through this whole thing on hiring somebody, the right person, and testing them along the way, which in retrospect, I've learned that happened to me several times over my career. Didn't know it. But how he tests them, he gets another staff member to walk by, or they leave a piece of trash on the ground, and does that person come in and pick it up? And it's just these little cues that he's looking for. That's just getting once you got interviewed or about to get interviewed, and sometimes you walk out and say, "No, sorry, I'm not interested." It's like, well, I didn't even get the interview. Yeah, but you didn't pass my 3 other tests before that. Then he shadows, his new staff will be shadowed by one of his A-team players, and for 5 days. And then he asked everybody, what do you think of this person? Is this person going to, I mean, this is hardcore. This is like, you can't do that everywhere. I mean, legally, you probably, no. But this is how important it is to get the right person and set the right expectations early in the piece. It's no use waiting 90 days and then talking about how's it going. It's like, no, you set the tone. It's about setting behavior. Good job, bad job, slap on the head, whatever. Or here's give the doggy a biscuit or whatever. Reinforcement. It sounds sad. The whole Pavlov's dog thing. I mean, I hate to use that as an analogy with people, but hey, you know what? That's how we are. That's human behavior.
That's right.
But just getting
you want to be rewarded and recognized.
Yeah, you want to reward and recognize. If you want to reinforce good behavior, what you want, and if it's something you don't want, you need to reinforce. But 5 days. If he gets the test 5 days, and if you don't pass the 5 staff that you work with, don't think you're the right person. See ya.
Well, and Mike, that's a great way to, I think, sum it up. It's that at the end of the day, we can put all the great golf course together. We can put the product together. We can have a great burger. But at the end of the day, we got to have great people. And the customer journey, especially in our business, of course, greens matter. Of course, hot dogs matter. Of course, the cleanliness of the buggy matters. And at the end of the day, all those things are still led by people that care, people that are passionate, people that are here for the right reason. And we've got to have a critical eye. So, hey, well, lastly, just one more time, how can people connect with you, with your articles, your blogs, your job postings? I saw you were looking for a superintendent the other day. If anybody wants to go get a superintendent's job down under, then how do they connect with you, Mike?
Yeah, depending which platform, it depends which platform you most use. But golfindustrycentral.com.au is the main platform. has my Facebook or the business Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, or Mike at golfindustrycentral.com.au, whatever. You just drop me a line. It's LinkedIn, LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, every platform you can do. I'm on there. Message me or, you should just type my name and I'll pop up at some point. But no, I'm happy to help. I mean, I work on a fairly diverse as an entry point for overseas companies looking to come this way. Staffing's a bit harder because of the visas and all that, but some of these facilities are open to overseas candidates. But from COVID last year into this year, moving a lot more stuff on, trying to be able to support and do things online via Zoom, or phone call, and structure it out and, work with the clients, as long as you have a clear vision of what you're wanting, I can help you action it. But in the end, it's up to you guys at the ground level to make it happen. So it's your culture, if it's important to you, then it'll get done.
Well, thank you, Mike. I invite all of our gig listeners to take Mike up on his offer and to reach out to him. If you want to talk to Mike about pace of play solutions, if you want to talk about the customer journey, the customer mapping, we're going to have some other content of Mike's on our platform over in our library. You'll find some articles and you'll find some webinars and some other things in time. And Mike, I'd love to have you back. There's so many things that we could touch upon, and I really appreciate you giving us your time today for these podcasts, part 1 and part 2, and really appreciate you joining Golf Industry Guru.
No, my pleasure. Excited to see the work you and Scott have done, and sort of being part of your journey and your vision of where you want to take things in whatever way I can. We've got a weekly newsletter, I guess, that just go onto the website and subscribe to it every Thursday. And has just what's going on, jobs and everything else. But if you want to get a feel for what's happening in this part of the world, I think back to when I first started, it was inspiration came from Golf Inc. magazine and online. I've been to the conference and there was a big gap here, and I've always valued what they had done, what the guys at Golf Inc. had done. And then, now we've got it in Asia with Asian Golf Business, and we've got Golf Business News and with Jeff Russell over in the UK. And so it's good to see these, we're all trying to just share knowledge. If we share knowledge, then we're going to get stronger. And if we have a good, strong industry, we're all going to stay employed. So we have a common thread there.
We have a common thread, a common need. Thanks again, Mike. And thanks, listeners. And we'll see you again on the Golf Industry Guru podcast.
Thanks for listening to the Gig Podcast. We hope you enjoyed this episode, and mostly that you learned a few things that will help you improve your business. Join us next time as we continue to bring you the best and brightest golf and hospitality leaders on the planet. Thanks for listening.